what is the purpose, in your guys' estimation, of government and politics? Because people have this idea that government and politics gives us, they kind of think it's for the people and it's good for us and it's what we need, and it's, but to me it seems the only purpose of politics and government is really to divide us and segregate us and keep us arguing one side against the other, my politician against your politician. It's never about unity and oneness. And do we need politics and government?
I sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think politics to me is more of a distraction for people. Like it distracts people from, like actually figuring out what the true problems are that are happening around them, or it's also a way for people to kind of it. I feel like government makes people reliant and gullible, and instead of like figuring out things for themselves, or putting things to their own hands. Like with the Black Lives Matter movement, I noticed a lot of people were trying to donate money or signing petitions, and they didn't know where they were donating their money. Not really.
Right.
Like you can I think the George Floyd GoFundMe had like $14 million, but George Floyd didn't need that GoFundMe. Someone who maybe faked, said that it was his sister made it, but someone spent $14 million richer.
Right.
Instead of people getting a group together and maybe physically rebuilding these, these Black communities up, they're trying to put it into the government's hands. And it's just as people, we have so much more power than what the government has. We could do so much more for each other, but no one does because we rely so much on the government.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of that type of realization has come out of this COVID-19 situation, where people are understanding not only, that's the great thing about this, I don't want to say the virus has been a positive thing for humanity, but we can look at it and say, what positives have come out of this? One of them is exactly what you're talking about, Phaedra, where people are starting to realize, wait a minute, our governments in the U.S. and as well here in the U.K. and others around the world, we can look at the circumstances, that the decision-making processes that they went through in the first month or so of this, and look at them now and analyze them and say, what a complete cluster. They had completely lost control, discounted the authorities, failed to act in time. They took certain, many actions that probably have led to many more cases and perhaps deaths that didn't have to happen if things had been more tightly controlled, and we actually had some authoritative decision making in place. In addition to that, though, to your larger question about what is the purpose of government, do we need it? Is it something that we can live without? I think probably within today's conscious level, aggregate conscious level of humanity, I think we need some type of organizing, authoritative entity to operating as an overarching or organizing focal point or central point. But I do think that, again, as part of this conscious upgrade or ascension or transcendence process that we're all going through, what we're seeing in the polarization and the conflict and the lack of productivity and the mistakes that are being made in all of our world governments right now, people are looking at that and going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why do I trust these authority figures to decide and run my lives? Why do they get to say what I spend money on, or how I'm where my attention is focused, or how I'm going to behave during a national or a global pandemic, for example? Why do I give these people my own power and authority? And I think that very series of that question by itself is going to lead a lot of people into the self-inquiry and self-development process.
That's what I was saying earlier, and there is a lot of good that's happening underneath it all.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that a lot of us not give in to the fear associated with all of this chaos.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People just need to know that there's just so much more going on behind the scenes, and almost nothing is what it seems at this point. And
There's plenty of aspects of that fear, I think, that are purposeful,
yeah,
that we do, and some that we probably still don't know about. Maybe more that we don't know about, actually. But and then there are aspects of it that are just as a result of negligence or oversight or what have you. But regardless, I think you're absolutely right. Is that the more people see evidence of circumstances that lead to fear or that are causing fear in the larger society, they're being offered a choice. They're being offered a choice. Do I want to cling to that and operate off of that as my day-to-day conscious existence, or am I going to take charge of my own thoughts and emotions,
right.
and try to find some way to increase my general state of being?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Taking charge of my thoughts and my emotions, because people aren't understanding that there is an agenda with these events. Like
Yeah.
with the Black Lives Matter, everybody's so quick to support Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, but they're not getting that they're contributing to this agenda, and this agenda is to keep us divided. Now we have a
Yeah.
racial war. Now it's black
Right.
versus white. All lives matter. We all matter. It shouldn't be black versus white. It shouldn't be about race. We need to look past such egocentric, fear-based. You're contributing to the problem in my
They
eyes.
they say, well, Black lives have to matter before all lives matter. Like they like, it's like
Exactly.
we pushing this problem, and it's up, but it's like this problem has been going on for decades, centuries. Like
Yeah.
the government there's government, there's the people that are in high power that have all this money that can easily fix these problems and aren't.
Mhm.
And it's like it should be the people versus the government, not white people versus black people.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you're going to see, you hit the nail on the head, Phaedra, when you talked about the length of time, if you will. These are all historical situations that have not ever been really resolved.
Yeah.
And so I think we should all expect to see a kind of cyclical repetition of those types of ongoing historical issues. Like we've seen the male female, the battle between the sexes, if you will, has played out over the last several centuries in just our country alone, with the rights to vote and the reproductive rights, and now with the latest with employment, fairness in employment and hiring practices, and then also the sexual assault and that kind of thing that's been going on these last several years. I would absolutely expect that scenario, that specific situation, to continue to emerge over the next several years in our national media interest, because it causes such a immediate reaction, really, on both sides, the male and the female, and through all races and classes of people. So I think we're going to see all of these issues continue to play out in many different ways, because exactly what you guys said is that they cause fear and divisiveness, and that's really all it takes.
Yeah, we need to start looking at the source of all of this fear and divisiveness. There is a source to it all, and
Yeah. Well, do you want to stay on when you answer that question? Do you want to stay here in the material plane, or do you want to go beyond it? Because the answer to that could go much further than.
Oh, let's go
just...
beyond it. We're diving deep, guys. We're diving deep. Because there is so much more, right?
Well, so let's see if we can give you the quick summary answer, if you will. Within the Christian faith, they say it's Lucifer or Satan, right? Is the overarching evil entity that causes all negativity or evil within the world, right?
Mm.
But as simplistic as that example might sound to people, like, the reality of it is, from a spiritual perspective, is all creation requires, just like electricity requires a positive polarity and a negative polarity in order to generate any type of motive force or any type of movement. So all creation requires what we would probably term as positive and negative, or potentially even good and bad energies. So all of the negative things that have been happening on this planet throughout the history of human civilization, although they appear at first glance to be negative, every single one of them has generated some type of positive movement as well in people that respond to it and say, I don't want to live that way, or I'm not going to run my nation this way, or I'm not going to be a part of this type of behavior or activity or what have you.
Yeah, that's right.
So each one of those negative events creates a choice in not only individuals, but in larger communities, societies, and nations as well. And so we can't necessarily look at them as something we want to completely get rid of. If you get rid of all of the negative polarity within the creation, if we're saying this is an energetic holographic realm and you get rid of all negative polarity, you have no creation at that point.
Right.
So
that's very true. I mean,
so as hard as it is to see people suffer and see us go through this difficulty, we also need to respect the fact that this is a natural evolutionary process of the human nature and the human consciousness, and we have to go through these tumultuous experiences in order to get to higher levels and more loving or more connected levels of being.
Absolutely, that's such a great point too. And I mean, that's why we're here, right? To experience this game that we're all playing. It's the game called the evolution of human consciousness.
You got it, brother.
Right? And yeah, absolutely, you're totally right. And I enjoy seeing the unraveling of it all. And yeah, like you said, there is a purpose to the negativity, and we're getting there, guys. We're definitely getting there. And
yeah, that's I think where the focus has to keep coming back to is if in any way we as individuals, especially those that are waking up to the truth, can look at a little bit higher perspective than where we stand right now. Just take a moment, step back, and look at it and go, how significant is this really, or how bad is this really, or how much does this really truly affect me in my day-to-day life and existence? Not to say we should always have a self-focus, but really realizing the negative things that are being tossed about in the global community right now. Sometimes we don't have to participate in those stories just because they're out there, right? We can continue to focus on the wonderful and positive and good, if you will, aspects of our lives, and maintain that inner peace and keep moving forward in our developmental process, and just recognize that doing that as well on a larger scale collective energy perspective is making a difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely true. But I think it's also really important that we do focus on the negative aspects, just because I feel like, especially with these spiritual teachers, and they all preach love and forgiveness, and you know, if you're not looking at the negativity and I'm not looking at the negativity, then who is? You know, like
you're right. You're absolutely right. If you're not focused on it, there's no reason to be ascending at all. Like if you don't peer into the darkness at all, you don't necessarily understand or know that it exists. There's no reason to do anything about it, even with regard to personal spiritual practice. So you nailed it, man. But the difficulty, I think, is that there is such a thing as veering too far into the darkness, if you will, and it's achieving that balance at an individual level, I think, is going to be really important as we go forward.
Yes, yeah. It really is a balance too, right? Some days I wake up, I'm like, yo, I feel so good. This is great. We're waking up, right? And then the next day I'm like, fuck, this shit's a mess.
You're absolutely right. Like, even just think about that again, even starting to understand what's really going on at the deeper level. If you as an individual can go through that level of roller coaster ride, what are unawakened or unaware souls dealing with right now, you know?
Right.
So yeah, it's again, to refer back to the Christianity or biblical aspect, the Revelations refers to the time of Armageddon, and I tend to think, hey, if we're not there now, we're going to probably live through at least some portion of that forecast. But I don't think it's the way it's been interpreted at large over time. I think the Armageddon, if you will, is going to be what you just talked about. Is going to be the battle between good and bad, or love and disunity at the individual level, and the judgment day that's referred to at the end of it. I don't think it's going to be some big distant entity in the sky judging each one of us as individuals. I think it's going to be the individual making the judgment of which direction am I going to go, light or dark. Like, that's it. Which way am I going to choose to live my life and follow my existence? So. Man, it's exciting times. You can't say it's boring.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we get there? We're in a world full of division and segregation and competition. How it seems like achieving this one united oneness for all of humanity it seems like a dream, almost like it's impossible to get to. Looking at it from an unawakened perspective, especially when I try to talk to this stuff about people, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a dream. That it's nice to think about that kind of stuff. It's never gonna happen." And
Right.
I don't want their thoughts to influence mine, but sometimes when I sit back, I'm just like, man, a lot of good things are happening, but I look around, it doesn't seem like shit's changing sometimes, like it kind of does seem like it's just a dream. So how do we get there? How do we get to unity and oneness and understanding that we're all connected right there?
The first thing would probably, you need to get people to realize that they want a change.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like the first step, is getting people to not only realize that like the way that they're living is not the best way they could be living, but then also like getting them to realize that change is an option, and it is always an option.
Right.
We have to live in the same way that our ancestors have lived.
Yeah, right. I think it's because people think that there's no other way to live except this, like right now. So yeah, it's. I think people understand that we have options. Like we don't. This doesn't have to be it.
I think I don't know. I'm very with the like the physical, the material, like all that stuff. I think people, in order to, I don't know. I think everyone's very by the book right now, and if they realize, like, I mean, there's so many people that have thought of different ways that we could be living with, like, in our government, like, there's a ton of different solutions, and people just are like so quick to be like, well, it is what it is. Like, our government's a rapist, or our president's a rapist. Like, what are we going to do about it? Like, it's just, I think people need to start realizing that they have a choice.
Right.
Let me offer one example with regard to the proof of concept that we were talking about earlier on in the discussion. So, like in the medical community, if someone had suggested, we'll say 15 or 20 years ago, to your average nurse or physician, that energetic healing was real or possible, and eventually will be integrated with physical standard practice medicine, they probably would have laughed at you. However, we're now in 2020, and I'll tell you that the U.S. Veterans Administration is sending wounded veterans, psychologically wounded veterans, to Reiki energy healers for treatment, because the statistics are showing that the benefits from that are just as have just the same efficacy as the trauma-based treatments that are being provided by mental health practitioners. So, holy crap, like, we now have the U.S. government now paying to send troops to spiritual energy healers, essentially, which is to the modern equivalent of an ancient shaman, if you will, kind of the same type concept. And that's going to grow, man, because I'll tell you from my own personal practice, we haven't really gotten into the healing discussion, but that stuff is real, and it's practicable not only at a professional, so somebody who goes through like years and years of training and that kind of thing, but an individual. We talk about the power of thought. Like, an individual can actually have huge effects on their own state of physical and mental health just through their own thought processes. So as that type of thing becomes more and more exposed and public knowledge and that kind of thing, I think things like that is what's going to solidify in people's minds that there is something worth researching and learning here. Like, they're going to have to see, in so many cases, they're going to have to see a 5 sense based physical change or effect that is instituted as a result of some type of higher energy. And when they start seeing that, I think the outcomes are gonna start to flow.
I have an interesting story of this guy I was listening to. This was a guy who was in the military, and he had his spiritual awakening in the military, and he realized quickly that he was not doing what he was meant to do, and once he learned the power of consciousness and thought, he was literally able to manifest arthritis in his hand just by thinking of it every day. I have arthritis. I have a problem with my hand. And eventually he manifested this symptom that was verifiable by doctors to the point where they were able to discharge him medically. And
isn't that crazy?
So he manifested arthritis in his hand, was able to get discharged from the military so he could pursue his real purpose, his real path.
So hypochondria, which is, essentially somebody who worries and fears about medical disorders and that kind of thing all the time, is a real
real thing. Yes.
Real thing. Like not only just like theoretical, but it's now we can understand from an energetic perspective of why that actually happens. Yeah. Like you really, no kidding, can cause yourself illness and sickness and injury and that kind of thing. So it works both ways for sure.
Totally. And from what I learned, a lot of the things that happen to us physically are manifestations of our thoughts and beliefs, and not even just from this life, from past life traumas and acknowledged or unprocessed things that happened in their past life can manifest physical symptoms in their current life. And
without a doubt, like these are all the physical structure is essentially a projection of the mind's current state. Right. So it's the body, in my opinion, is it's like a display in the front of the space shuttle, if you will. It's just giving you indicators as to the current state of your overall vehicle, including your energy being and your soul, if you will. If you pay attention to it and you address it, then you can correct the problems before they become debilitating or worse. But if you don't know how, which most people don't know how, using things other than the current medical system, then you just continue to go down the same road. Exactly. So, and we haven't even gotten into discussing like internal shadow work and personal energy cleansing and that kind of thing. But I think that's going to become, those types of things are going to become a lot more commonly known and understood and common practice as people start to understand more what it takes to resolve exactly what you're talking about, like those past life and childhood traumas and all the things that cause us essentially to feel separate from our source. Like you have to go through a process of willfully removing or cleansing those energies from your internal being. And it's so there's a lot of knowledge that comes along with exactly how to do that, and it's not an easy process, unfortunately.
It's not.
Yeah.
Especially because people are still stuck in the perception that we are our bodies. This is it. I'm just a human. I'm just August. That's all I am. Just this human alone on a rock, like nothing else, and it's great seeing all of these alternative medical science and healing coming to light and on a bigger scale. And a lot of people I know have been learning about like Reiki and stuff like that and all this energy work, and it's just awesome to see that happen.
Yeah. Again, I think you guys' generation are going to be maybe the first that is more often than not, so more individuals than not, open to the possibility. They may not understand it at first, but at least being open-minded enough to accept the possibility, if you will.
Yes.
We know the generation, the post-war generation, absolutely not. My generation, the Generation X, I'm probably a good, 20, 25 years older than you guys. I think we're kind of at the in-between state where some of us are clinging to the baby boomer mentality, and some of us are trying to step ahead and go, there's got to be more than this. But I think it's still kind of a mix. But with you, like the millennial, and certainly like I've got an 8-year-old daughter, and she's like, dude, tell me everything. I want to know all about my spirit and what healing is all about. And I just want to know. Yeah. It's fascinating. And she talks to her fellow kids at school about this kind of stuff too. Like,
cool.
Yeah. So
a lot of my friends they're pretty open to a lot of like stuff that's
awesome.
Spiritual and stuff. And I've noticed I'm on dating apps, and mostly people will put spirituality as their religion, which I think is
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So it's becoming much more like, if you would have said that 50 years ago, people would have been like, oh, you're a witch, or you're a black magic or whatever. But now, now people understand, or maybe they would have thought like psychic or something like that. It's like a fringe type label to apply. But now I think the understanding of what it is certainly starting to grow.
Yeah.
Heck, I only got into this. I was an atheist 3 years ago. I had literally no
Wow.
idea what spirituality was whatsoever.
That's
If you would have
awesome.
asked me, I would not have been able to tell you like one sentence about what it was.
Whoa,
So,
that's so cool.
so it's I would say for the first 6 months to a year even, and kind of trying to learn meditation, all that kind of
Yes,
stuff, I
yes.
still didn't really have a good solid idea
too.
of what spirituality really was. It's only in the last like maybe
Same.
year and a half or so
No,
ago that
yeah.
that's really solidified.
Same with me. My awakening was not too long ago too. What was your awakening like, Ken? Could you explain?
Oh man. Well, so I was a military guy too, like you were just talking about. I retired
wow.
from the Air Force 3 years ago, and when I got out, I had kind of a similar moment. It didn't happen while I was in the military, but within 3 months of getting out of the military, my family moved from the United States to England. So literally, like everything that I had come to know myself as, other than a spouse and a parent, like everything else kind of like was torn away in a period of just 3 months.
That's awakening.
Yeah. So you go through this like existential crisis of, well, if I'm not all those things, then what the hell am I? And you start asking those questions, and man, like it's like shit just flows in. Like you can't help it. You just start gravitating toward, the science, like philosophy. I couldn't get enough philosophy for like 6 months, and then I got into like astrophysics and all that kind of stuff. I don't have a big enough brain to understand that shit. So then I had to start moving toward like psychology and stuff like that, and that eventually led to some spiritual type work. So yeah, it's cool though to hear like how the process is. It's different for every single person, but I think that's how it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be, it's not ever going to be like, here's the book you need to read, or here's the belief system you need to follow. It is you as an individual are, no kidding, like growing into your own understanding of what you need. You're going to become your own guru, your own teacher as a result of going through this process. And that part about it is, to me, is just like the coolest aspect, that we get to design our own learning program, essentially for the rest of our lives. We get to determine what we learn and when, and what we gravitate to. So,
and awakening is it's never easy. It's always crazy. Like,
it's a wild ride.
It so is. And like, my awakening was kind of similar. I was also an atheist. After I was a Christian, I kind of became an atheist.
Yeah, same here.
Wow, interesting. Okay, and and then it just challenged everything, and I realized everything about my life wasn't who I really was, and relationships were just dropping like flies, friends gone, girlfriend gone, and now it's even to the point where my family, I love them, I just can't relate to them anymore, and I'm on such a different level of consciousness than them that I can't be around them all the time.
And that's I think a very common part of the process, and from what I understand, like it's very necessary. Like you almost have to. You think of the ancient guru isolating himself to a cave for 5 or 10 years or whatever to go meditate or what have you. It's not necessarily that extreme anymore, because our consciousness as a collective has evolved to a level where that level of intensity is no longer necessary, right? But some level of separation is absolutely needed to get you away from the former negative influences that have held you down for so long. So. Yeah, cool, man. What about you, Phaedra?
Mine was, I don't know. Mine was mostly like, I just kept having like spurts of ideas and stuff. Like it first started with August. Like I came across his
cool.
Whatever.
Already influential, brother. That's awesome.
Love it. And I remember I was just going through that, and I was like sending it to my friends. I'm like, you guys need to like look at all this, like, this is crazy, like looking at his comments, looking at what other people were saying and how they believed it too. And I was like, man, like, because I feel like I'd always felt like something was up, like something was not right with our reality and stuff. And then just kind of seeing his posts was what really drew me to them. And then I started watching YouTube videos on just everything.
I love it.
I think we that's so cool. I think we literally have to trust our internal guidance system to direct us to what we need next. There's nobody in this world that can sit down with you right now and tell you what you're going to need a year or 2 years or 5 years from now with regard to your awakening, your spiritual development, because it's evolutionary and it's dynamic, so And it's so unique. It's so cool to see how each individual kind of finds exactly what they need, like right when they need it. And all you got to do is just stay open. And, like the statement from biblical, and also the Quran refers to the seek and you will find what you're looking for type scenario. And that's so true. So true.
And I love it. Everybody has their own set time for awakening, right? And it's the beauty of the universe, how the universe will guide you to the right thing at the right time, at the right moment, when you're ready.
It's learning to let go of that internal need for controlling every detail of your life, and just recognizing that, hey, look at the trees, look at the grass, look at the birds. Do you think they ever stress about how their lives are going, or whether things are going to turn out for them next day? No, they operate in the moment, and things are just provided for nature. And we're supposed to be the same way, but somehow we've managed to cork things up for ourselves for a while. And now we're just getting back to our normal operational system.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's a good point. We're getting back to our true state.
And
our true state is oneness with all that is. And ever since my awakening, I'm so open now. Like I had no idea the universe can communicate to me in these ways. And now I'm just so open. Now I'm just, give it to me, universe, give it to me.
Yeah.
Now I'm meeting all the right people like you guys, and all the right books are coming my way, and everything I ever wanted, because all my
the coincidences,
because all my life I've always just wanted to know, and I think my anxiety and my frustration and wanting to know and not getting answers was blocking me. And then once I kind of just let go and realize that the universe will take care of it, and then now, boom, I'm meeting the right people. I'm literally, a book will just appear in my face. Boom, here it is. Read this, and I'm just like, yes, this is what I needed.
But you hit the key right there. You've got to be specific about your intent. You've got to be open, and then you've got to be disconnected from these specifics of the outcome. If you can achieve all three of those things in any type of intent or manifestation, dude, the world is at your fingertips.
Right,
really.
Exactly. Like it got to a point before my awakening where I was just so frustrated with not getting answers that I gave up. And then I think it was at that moment where I just gave up, and I stopped being frustrated. I stopped caring about truth at one point. And then all of a sudden, boom! I got truth. I got awakening.
There you go. You disconnected yourself from the outcome, and that's when it flows in. Man, that's so cool. Perfect.
Yeah.
Very cool. And all we have to do really is, if you can put yourself in the mindset of, if I was literally the creator of all of this shit, which you are, but we don't all know it yet, right? But if I was the one that made all this, how would I be operating if I wanted to change things? If you can ever get yourself to the mindset of that, that's exactly how it would work, right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't sit there stressing over every single thing that's going on, because hey, I made it and I can change it if I need to, and it just works, right?
Totally.
So, yeah, awesome, very cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for you guys.
No, those were great. What a very diverse and dynamic and deep discussion. Wow, really,
I love it.
Broad, yeah.
I can't talk to the stuff about anybody, you guys, or with anybody, you guys. And like, I'll jump at any time to have a conversation like this. And
same here. I'm open anytime you guys want to do a repeat.
Yeah, well, I feel like whenever I try to talk to people about it, it's just usually me talking and them. Oh, okay.
It's always just, for me, it's always just like, all right, this crazy fuck again. What does he have to say? What does he?
It's a one-way conversation at this point, and that may be the case for a while. But just realize that at least little bits of that energy, that information is getting in. So have confidence that your experience of truth, no matter as long as you're relaying it according to your own experience and doing it in a way that's true for you, some aspect of that is being picked up and retained by the people you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really hope it is, because, man, the only thing people want to talk about around me is goddamn Trump and goddamn Corona, and they just blast politics, and like, when I hear politics, it drives me nuts. I'm literally like a vampire hitting sunlight. I'm like, get away from me! put my headphones on, blast my music up.
Yeah, I think that's a real common approach. Once you start to gravitate toward more subtle levels of reality, the current manifestation symptoms of conflict and competition and polarity and those types of things just has no appeal anymore. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it really is like living in two worlds in a sense in that way.
Yeah, that is such a great point too. It really is living in two worlds. People are stuck in this one world, and people like us, we're open to the multiverse, you know? Like, there's just so much more out there, and I want people to know, but yeah, it's all a process, and we're definitely getting there. And, and this is helping, you know.
It's just have faith in yourself that exactly what you're doing, you are applying your intellect and your energy to communicating, getting the information out there, doing exactly what you're doing right now, dude. Your group has grown from, I think I joined, it was like 100 members, and now it's almost 1,000 like a couple weeks later.
So I've been watching the amount of people. I'm just like, because it's gone up by like 100 in a day.
A lot of and it's so awesome. I'm getting messages every day from people saying like I've opened their eyes and I've changed their life.
So don't question your impact. Like, I've been doing this for 3 years, and I haven't touched 1,000 people in 3 years, and you in 2 weeks have put that message out there. So so don't doubt yourself. Just realize that it's happening already. You've put seeds in the ground that are going to grow into massive redwoods. You literally might not have to do anything else action-wise other than what's already been done to impact thousands of people. So what more do you want, really?
True. That's very true.
You want millions, is what you're saying.
Yes, I do. True. Yeah. And there's plenty of time. So that's the other thing, is it's real easy to get frustrated and impatient. Lord knows I've been there so many times over the last several years. But I think these types of interactions and discussions are probably going to help all of us a lot. The more we have them, is understanding that, all right, I'm not alone. Other people are going through this. At least I'm not insane. I'm not crazy. So this kind of stuff. You guys have no idea. Before I started voicing myself online on Quora, there are so many days where I'm just huddling in a corner like, I'm alone. This is madness. Get me out of here. But
so many of the channeled sources right now, I follow a lot of those, and so many of them right now are saying literally, like, this point in this year, this is the year of awakening, if you will, for humanity, and this midpoint in this year is the point where exactly this type of thing is going to happen, where those of energy and conscious development or awareness are going to start coming together and forming groups and figuring out ways to cohesively align and get that information out. So, man, it's like, this is not coincidence. This is all pre-planned, but still subject to our free will. So how cool is that?
Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing, guys. And I'm glad you guys were both here to
without a doubt. Thanks again for the invite.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, if you guys have stuff you want to say, message us and you can be on the next episode, because it's all about just learning from each other and learning from other people's experiences, right? Instead of learning and being spoon-fed from our major official sources. Everybody's truth is different, and I feel like everybody has some truth that you can learn from, and it's important that we talk and share our own personal truths and take truth and information from all avenues, right? And make that fit with your understanding of truth and reality, and that's important that we do that. So spot on. And we need to realize that we are each individually capable of contributing in a very real and meaningful way to the creation of what the new paradigm of human existence is going to be. As crazy as that may sound to most of the world today, like, we need to recognize that level of ability is no longer fantasy. It is here, it is now, and if you want to have a voice and an input in the way things go, jump in and get involved. That's the coolest part about all this. Absolutely. All right, well, guys, this was an amazing discussion. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. both of you.
Awesome. Thanks, August. Thanks, Phaedra. Great to meet you guys both,
Yeah,
and look forward to more discussions on Quora and perhaps another podcast in the future.
Yeah. All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks.